Hey guys, welcome back. So 2 years ago, I did a review of Terrifier 2, and that film landed at my number one favorite slash best spot for 2022. And recently, I had the pleasure of watching Terrifier 3, which came out October 11th. I actually caught it on October 12th, so a Saturday. Last showing, I got Blair to agree to go and see it. It was a lively crowd at that. A lot of people bursting out, laughing, enjoying the film, as did I. I chuckled quite a few times, laughing at the most diabolical scenes, a Meet Santa gone wrong, if you catch my drift. The demographic was 18 to 35, I want to say, from my theater experience. A big contributing factor, I think, when it comes to the audience's reaction, in my theater experience at least, is the impeccable timing when it comes to Art's comedic performances, but also the deranged visuals, because a lot of people, of course, were saying that this one would top the second one, Terrifier 2. And in many ways, I have to say that yes, most certainly does. This was one of the most paralyzing experiences I've ever had watching a film, just because of the amount of gore. And believe it or not, what is being said about people leaving the theater is true. Quite a few I glanced over were leaving, and we weren't even halfway through the film. I do think Damien Leone is clever when it comes to pushing the boundaries. Specifically, this film pushes quite a few when it comes to taboo practices or things that you don't normally see in mainstream media. And I just find it so incredibly insane, completely insane, that we get to experience something like this in a theater. You gonna meow? Oh, look. I don't know if you're gonna be able to see the kitty. Blair and I have a kitten now. We haven't named him just yet, but he is so adorable. What? You're so cute. Seeing an indie film rise up, making over $18 million its opening weekend at the box office on a $2 million budget makes me extremely happy. And unlike certain other horror franchises, which seem to get worse with every sequel, i.e. cash grab, even though I'm a sequels lover, every iteration of Art the Clown, these Terrifier films, just seem to get better and better. But like I stated already, during its 2-hour runtime, I felt entirely paralyzed watching this incorrigible little menace just hack away at all these people and showing us that there are really no limits to the carnage, or unfortunately who receives it. With that in mind, I didn't have any prejudgments or reservations when it comes to the Christmas backdrop. I should have known going in that I was going to have a blast. 5 years after falling prey to the Miles County clown, siblings Sienna and Jonathan attempt to move forward from their trauma, but the past comes back to haunt them. As the holiday season approaches, a new, much more terrifying Santa emerges, hacking away at the unsuspecting Christmas goers. So I guess I'll start with things that I loved about this film, starting with David Howard Thornton's impeccable timing when it comes to playing Art the Clown, with the slapstick comedy mixed with the heinous acts that are being committed, and quite literally slapping a particular character a few times, and the audience's reaction to that. And I don't want to sound hypocritical, but in the past I have stated that horror comedies don't work that well for me. But Art the Clown, man, is just a character that has captured my soul, that has my heart. It has to do with that balancing act, which I think is very difficult to not only commit to, but execute really well. That's what I mean when it comes to the timing, because you could be watching something completely depraved and sickening happening before your very eyes, but then it's his expressions and his mannerisms and just everything that Art embodies that you forget what just happened, because you're like, what is going on? We're going so left field, but it's that balancing act. It just works really well. He's gone up the ranks. I said this in my review for Terrifier 2, but Art the Clown is an icon. I do refer to him as a little menace because there is a particular scene later on where you do get this interaction between this off-duty Santa Claus and Art the Clown, and Art is so giddy and excited. That's what I mean. He's full of surprises. Also, the gory effects, the makeup and prosthetics done by Christian Tinsley. So in this one, from my understanding, Damien Leone took a step back, and I have to say, the gore in this film is something else. It takes it to such levels that I've never experienced that with any other film. So I did watch this movie from two different perspectives. One, as an audience member, just being petrified with what I'm witnessing. But two, being in utter amazement at just the practical effects that are utilized. Next, I would have to say the cliffhangers, which play out like a novella. I did in fact look up an article where Damien Leone had stated that he's treating these like a miniseries, which makes so much sense, and I think it is smart that he's building leading up to this final showdown between Art and Sienna, sprinkling in a bit of information while keeping things for the most part under wraps. I mean, we are learning more about Art the Clown and the sole purpose of why he has an accomplice, whereas in Terrifier 2, we're presented with more questions than answers. This one definitely does answer a lot more. I just hope they don't ruin the mystery of Art too much. I hope they don't delve too into it. And I do like that the film is actually leaning more into the supernatural and demonic route, strangely. Next, I would have to say Sienna's visions. In particular, there's one that's coming to mind when she sees this statue of the Virgin Mary who's yanking this demon who's on a leash, and said demon is forging a sword, and it's showing us kind of this glimpse of how good and evil work hand in hand. But it is one of the most freaky parts of this movie, because the movements, the way the statue just turns to look at Sienna, it's got this sort of haunting, eerie, uncanny sort of look to it that it made me really uncomfortable, but also one of my favorite parts. And finally, it would have to be a combination of the Christmas theme with the way in which the story is moving along, as we're following the dynamic duo that is Art the Clown and Victoria. Even though it's not really Victoria, at least I think it's the pale girl from the previous film, the demon who has inhabited Victoria, to be the vessel. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and move on to the top 3 most brutal moments within this film, in my personal opinion, starting with the first one, which is when Sienna's hands are tenderized by Art the Clown just before opening up her Christmas present. It is so disgusting every time I think about that, just because it looks like ground beef to me. It doesn't even look like hands. Like, he mushed her hands up with a hammer, and it's just, I don't know, something about that just makes me really uncomfortable every time I think about it. So that's number 1 for me. 2 is going to have to be when Aunt Jess has a glass tube inserted into her mouth, but it's not even just the glass tube or what follows with that. It has to be as they're inserting it. Her mouth is like the sides. It's ripping open. It just, I don't know. Maybe I'm weird. Maybe I'm weird with the things that I find disturbing, but that entirely grossed me out as well. And I felt really bad for her. She's a character that I will say I had hopes that I'm giving everything away, but I'm gonna make this a spoiler review. But I had hopes that she would survive, and no, of course not. I mean, come on. And number 3 is going to have to be Old St. Nick's liquid nitrogen to the face. Unlike the other 2, which I found completely disgusting, this one was actually brutal in like a really badass sort of way. And even though Art is always up to his old tricks, he finds ways to reinvent himself by doing something new. This time, of course, like I stated, the liquid nitrogen. There's so much more that I could talk about that I haven't even discussed. For example, the shower scene, the iconic kill of the film. Every Terrifier film seems to have one. The first one, the girl who's upside down and getting hacked in half. The second one being the bedroom scene. And then the third one, the shower scene. But I'm not going to get into all that. I just wanted to talk about a few things that I really enjoyed about this film. I would highly recommend, if you have the opportunity, to go see it, if you can stomach it, of course. Okay, now that I got my general thoughts out of the way, as you can tell, I really enjoyed this film. I gave it a 4.5 out of 5. It's ranked pretty high. I don't think it outranked Terrifier 2. I think that's still my favorite. Now, what I'm going to go ahead and do is move on to a bit of a rant, which I don't want to end this video on a negative, but I feel like I need to discuss this because it's just something that's been bothering me every time I think about this article that I read online. And for obvious reasons, I'm not going to mention who the writer is. But similar to the Terrifier films, where you get to see every bit of viscera on screen, this individual was tearing up Terrifier to shreds. With their opinions, of course. Now, their opinions would have been valid, which, I mean, I'm not trying to invalidate them, had they made a little bit more sense with what they're trying to convey. So one of the big things that they had stated was that this film has no plot whatsoever. I mean, by definition alone, every film, or a majority of films, have a plot, have something going. I completely disagree with their opinion on that. I'm just wondering if they meant that the plot is underdeveloped. Maybe that's what they meant. Okay, so there's one. The second would be that it's trashy, it's unimaginative, it's lowbrow sort of content. There's no real substance to it. And I mean, you know, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but I do think it's funny how they were going so hard at trashing the director, saying he's talentless and he's a hack and all these things that I just think are so preposterous. Like, just say you didn't like the film. to say you don't like gory films. Just say you don't like slashers. That's fine. And then to take it even a step further and just saying that all the gore is just used as a masquerade to distract the audiences from how pathetic or poorly written the storyline is, that is baffling to me. But okay, go off. Whatever you want to say. I have to bring this up because I had a discussion with a friend who didn't go really hard as this individual online, but we did have a conversation surrounding slashers. Their opinion, which I respect, is that slashers are kind of a done deal. They don't really provide much, but I beg to differ. I think slashers have quite a bit to provide. I'm trying to understand this individual's train of thought, but it's just not computing for me because you're saying that it's only gore and it has nothing to offer. Yet we're 3 movies in, mind you. So what did you think you're watching? I'm just saying, because honestly, we had The Ninth Circle, we had All Hallows Eve, and now we have 3 Terrifier films. So what did you think you were getting into? And then the other argument that people have made is the controversial inclusions involved. So murdering children, which is not new if you haven't watched All Hallows Eve, because Art kills the children. From my recollection, it's off screen, so you don't see the children being hacked up, you just see the aftermath. And similar in this film, that's what happens. A lot of it is off screen. Let me just say the bomb scene, that was probably the most jaw-dropping part of the movie. Everything else, like when it comes to the children who are being killed, you don't actually see it in action. So I think that's what I mean with what I was saying earlier, that Damien Leone was very clever at keeping certain things reserved or having certain reservations, which is, I know that probably sounds weird because we're shown so much, but there is some restriction when it comes to certain things that we don't normally see in mainstream media, like I stated earlier. And then that also follows up with animal cruelty in this film, and also imagery that's sacrilegious that people may find offensive. For me though, I mean, I can't really speak much because I'm not religious. I mean, I grew up, was indoctrinated into the Catholic Church, but I didn't find anything offensive with this film. I thought it was, I shouldn't say it's tame. Anything that could be taken offensively, I don't think it really pushed it in that direction, if you know what I mean. When it comes to certain material, especially for someone like me who posts on YouTube, who's watched certain extreme films, you can't really compare the two. Like for example, like if I think of somebody like Marian Dora or whoever the it is that directed a Serbian film, I wouldn't compare those with something like a splatterfest that is Art the Clown, Terrifier films. But I think it's a good conversation to have when it comes to taboos and what should or shouldn't be in horror. For me personally, I don't think anything should be off the table. I think everything goes. However, I'll be honest, I think it just depends on how you choose to explore that topic or that particular sort of taboo. But yeah, that's it. I think I'm just going to end this on a positive note, though. I don't want to leave it off on a rant. A lot of shocking moments with Terrifier 3. Even the ending has me wondering, what direction are we going to go in for Terrifier 4? I fully welcome it. I'm so ready. I'm ready for Terrifier 4 now. And I hope another one comes out. Hopefully there's a Terrifier 5. I know Damien Leone, I did see an article as well where he stated that franchise is not going to go to space. So it's not going to be something like Jason X or like Leprechaun, which I personally wouldn't mind seeing Art the Clown in space. I'm going to go ahead and cut my rambling off here. Let me know if you've watched this film or if you're going to watch it or if you're not going to watch it. I know personally I'm going to rewatch the other two, and I might go back for a second viewing of Terrifier 3. I didn't think I was going to. I thought I had my fill, like every little last morsel of watching that 2-hour runtime. But I might go once again because now talking about it, doing a YouTube video on it, I want to go see it. I might go up to a 5. I don't know why I gave it a 4.5. Sometimes I don't know why I do the rankings that I do or what comes up in my head that I choose the things that I choose. But yeah, let me know your thoughts on Terrifier 3. All right, night guys.